One of the earliest use cases for XRP was the use of XRP as a bridge asset. Because going all the way back to when Brad Garlinghouse scolded Facebook for launching Libra, which, by the way, failed completely, he said that that was a walled garden. Now, it is, because again, when you think about Facebook launching their own currency, why would Twitter at that time want to use Facebook's Libra token? And I'm pretty sure at that time, Instagram was not bought out by Facebook. So, Instagram, why would Instagram use, Facebook's currency? Like they just simply won't. So that's more friction to the system. Now, today, we know that JP Morgan and these big banks are looking at launching their own stablecoin. I'm pretty sure JP Morgan already has JPMD, which is a digital currency that they launched. These are all walled gardens because Citi's not going to use JPM coin. Bank of America is not going to use JPM coin. They're all going to have their own. These are all walled gardens. Now, recently, we've been talking about a few private networks, like even Canton Network, which has been, very successful. However, that's still a walled garden. Like these private network initiatives, they're all walled gardens. They still need connections back to other blockchains and other networks that have value on them. Even when we think about tokenization, we look at the tokenization market, there's so many different networks that have value tokenized on them. And that's all, friction, because again, they're all digital islands. We need to have interoperability, which is why we go back to October 15th of just last year, where Ripple put out a post regarding crypto interoperability, why global regulatory convergence is key to stablecoin fungibility. Because even stablecoins, we have so many different, stablecoins, especially on-chain FX becoming a reality. Like all of this is friction. It's every step of the way, friction added, which is why we look at bridge currencies. We look at a neutral bridge currency being the main selling point here, because again, we look at the key theme in the report, which has identified this as a decisive factor that will determine whether stablecoins create a seamless global system or a collection of walled gardens, because without interoperability for even stablecoins, they're just not going to be successful, which is why I go over here. So big shout out to Jungle Inc. for this. We have Cathie Wood, stablecoin payments without privacy don't work. Do you remember R3? Cathie points out the need for privacy. If entities see payments on move or on the move and stable, the market moves. So this also shows the need for XRP. If the peso to ROUSD moves, you can reroute the payment through another path. Check this out.
But beyond that, I mean, ARK is obviously very focused on being able to move money across borders. It's not entirely clear to me how they're dealing with the privacy issues, because a lot of people moving money around are concerned about that. And for instance, some of the entities that do cross-border transmittance facilitations using blockchains find that as soon as they move dollar stablecoins to Mexico, that the Mexican peso all of a sudden moves because everybody knows what's coming next, which is, just highlights the problem that happens on these, when things are completely transparent.
It's interesting. Do you remember, this probably was either 2014 or 15. Do you remember one, which was tried by the various banks?
Yeah, I think it was R3, but yes.
Oh, was it R3? I knew it was R something. Okay. Yeah. Okay, R3. It never worked. They for reasons you just said, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So I am surprised. We do own Circle, but I was surprised that they were going to try that again, because it so clearly didn't work. Now, maybe it was an idea before its time, and Circle is going to find some success in some way here. But I think what you're doing here, I think would be preferential to this.
So yeah, I mean, listen, when we think about some of these initiatives, they failed because they were private initiatives. At the end of the day, yes, stablecoins will need privacy. Yes, we'll have these private networks, but that still reinforces the use of XRP anyways. But also, even if they wanted to utilize public chains, like for example, the XRP ledger. Yes, there is a rerouting within the XRP ledger that allows for privacy, even if entities want to utilize a public chain to move payments through stablecoins or whatever the case may be. So Jungle Inc. is 100% correct here. Like, even if R3 did fail, say for so R3 is done, it failed, all of the connections with XRP and R3 are out of the window, who cares? The fact here is that, XRP never needed R3. XRP doesn't need any name for XRP to be successful, because the value of XRP and the XRP ledger lie within what's already coded into the network. When we think about institutional players, entities wanting to, tap into payments, yes, they want privacy. The rerouting, factor there that's already built in solves that. It's almost like XRP and the XRP ledger, when they were initially created, prepared for all of this. The minds behind XRP, Arthur Brito, David Schwartz, and all of the other, devs, it's almost like they knew where we were headed. And, how couldn't they, when David Schwartz literally created a DLT patent back in the 80s? Insane to think about that, right? But again, a lot of this was walled gardens. Like, even R3 was creating a walled garden, which is why when we go over to JP Morgan, like back on November 12th, they rolled out JPM Coin. But this was using a public blockchain. It was using Coinbase's base. But again, this is JP Morgan Coin, JPM Coin. Every other bank is also going to do this. Now we also go over here. JP Morgan arranges landmark US commercial paper issuance on Solana public blockchain. More public blockchain initiatives. Remember when JP Morgan was only private blockchain led with, Onyx, which also now became like Kinexus? Yeah. It's because the walled garden approach is not working. And even if they are tapping into public blockchains, you still need interoperability between all of these public blockchains. You still need something to settle, everything between all of these public blockchains as well. XRP could definitely be that, big piece of the puzzle. But that's also why, even going back to April of last year, where, Ripple announced that it was acquiring Hidden Road, Monica Long said the fundamental tenets of what both Ripple and Hidden Road are trying to do are the same: build better financial infrastructure for global movement of value than the walled gardens, fragmented rails, and monolithic entities of the past. Because again, if we're going back to this whole walled garden approach, where, we have all this friction still, even with stablecoins, we're not solving for anything. We're not building towards anything, impactful. But that's why we go all the way back to January 7th of 2021. Partnership, interoperability, and neutral bridge currencies, key to CBDC's success. Now, even though this is CBDC's success, you could change CBDC's success to stablecoins. You could change it to RWAs, anything of value. You still need a neutral bridge currency. The key to this will be how central banks approach interoperability and regulations for these CBDCs. A network of diverse yet interoperable digital fiat currencies will help surmount the current system of today's country-specific walled financial gardens that impede cross-border payments, global e-commerce, and financial inclusion efforts. So yeah, listen, when we think about what's happening here, there is so many digital currencies that have launched. We already have the digital yuan. We have the ECB launching the digital euro soon. Stablecoins also, like, there's so many different things of value. And again, like, we still need a neutral bridge currency. We even have down here that this universal interoperability hinges on the use of open standards and neutral bridge assets optimized for speed, scalability, and cost to free up capital and enable the unrestricted movement of value between CBDCs. And again, you could change CBDCs to stablecoins. You can change it to anything. There's going to be so many different digital currencies. You have, banks launching JPM Coin now and their own deposit tokens. You also have CBDCs. You have stablecoins. You have all of these things. The value of neutral bridge assets becomes even more reinforced here. So we have neutral bridge assets will allow for frictionless value movement between various CBDCs without requiring each one to solve the liquidity challenges inherent in cross-border transactions. RippleNet's on-demand liquidity service, which now is basically Ripple Payments, allows financial institutions to transact in real time across multiple global markets using the digital asset XRP as a bridge currency, because XRP is faster, less costly, and more scalable than any other digital asset, making it the ideal instrument in bridging two different currencies quickly and efficiently. And that means any two different currencies, any two different RWAs, CBDCs, stablecoins. It does not matter. XRP is the perfect neutral bridge for this. And that's why I also said that, with what Ripple is building, this stack is so disruptive. And it builds on top of that, older video. Now, this is not too old, but it's still a great clip. Vet_X0 posted, we have friendly reminder that XRP aggregates demand for issued assets like RLUSD on the XRP ledger, just like the dollar today for smaller currencies. If the vision is open finance, you need something neutral without jurisdiction that anyone can hold to provide liquidity between them. Check this out.
Let's switch to stablecoins, because they're obviously kind of all the rage right now, and everyone and their dog is issuing one, from JP Morgan to Facebook. But especially what the banks are doing. I think last week a new kind of consortium of banks said, "Hey, we're rolling out this new stablecoin." Does that kind of freeze you guys out, or?
I think it's actually helpful. One of the problems that people have is the ability to hold digital assets can be difficult, particularly with the volatility in some digital assets. Stablecoins are safer to hold if you can trust the issuer. So I think to that extent, it can be helpful, because you still need liquidity. So if you imagine a dollar stablecoin issued by JPM, and you have maybe some other dollar coins issued by companies like Circle, and everybody seems to be issuing a stablecoin, and then you have stablecoins in other currencies, because if you're not in the United States, a dollar coin is not really all that stable. You still need liquidity between those stable coins. And I think it's also important to remember that these stable coins have counterparties, and there isn't a universal counterparty. There isn't some counterparty that everybody in the world can have equal access to. It's going to have to be in some jurisdiction. It's going to have to be part of some regulatory regime. And so I think if the vision is this sort of open participation, this sort of internet of money, collateralized stable coins will be players, but I think there will still have to be liquidity between them. And if you imagine dozens of stable coins, hundreds and hundreds of markets is probably not going to be as efficient as going through some sort of assets that aggregate, like the dollar does today. The dollar sort of aggregates demand for smaller currencies, and we see XRP playing that role.
And you're saying its openness is going to favor it because it's easy to move in and out of.
Yeah, I think if you can imagine, like, you might have a hub in one country and a hub in another region, how do you settle between those hubs? You need something that's neutral. You need something that's kind of jurisdictionless. If you want a sort of open participation ecosystem, you can't have things that are controlled by a single party at the center.
And yeah, I mean, listen, this is what makes XRP extremely valuable. Like, when we think about XRP's use case as a neutral bridge currency, the neutral part there is so important because nobody's controlling it. Nobody has control on either side. You need something like that because it will provide the liquidity. This is why I've always stated that XRP and what Ripple is building here, XRP is the key to it all. It's the oil to the engine. Ripple has essentially created the engine for the financial system, and XRP is the oil to it all. XRP is the global liquidity engine. Guys, this is something that you need to pay attention to because, again, when we think about what's happening here, the evolution of our entire financial system, it's changing. It's changing right now. The evolution is to digital tokenization, always on, 24/7, 365. And Ripple has been building this for years. It's called the Internet of Value. And everything in the stack, Ripple Prime, Ripple Custody, Ripple Payments, Palisade, G Treasury, Rail, all of it, it does not work without the neutral bridge currency. Because if we're thinking about how much friction is out there with all of these different assets, all these different currencies, you still need a neutral bridge currency that nobody controls. That's why XRP, I've always described it as the oil to this engine. And I'm not the only one that has stated this, right? Like, many Ripple employees in the past have stated this as well, because again, it really works that well. That's also why, with new currencies launching, stablecoin initiatives, like, I always go back to this image, and I know that you guys probably have, witnessed this image now and seen it in so many different videos, but it really is true. Like, when we think about what's going on here, this is the end goal, in my opinion. I think that we will see so many different currencies, so many different things of value. And, it's not just going to be a one chain, fits all sort of, move here where XRP is the only bridge currency. But I do think that, the most efficient, the most liquid digital asset will be adopted in a big way. And I think that XRP definitely fits that role. It's the same reason why we go back to that original statement from Ripple where they said that XRP is faster, less costly, and more scalable than any other digital asset, making it the ideal instrument in bridging two different currencies quickly and efficiently. And it's always been built for that use case ever since, inception. So yeah, I mean, listen, I do think that, a lot of these initiatives have failed in the past. And I think it's simply because, we don't have a lot of the things in place that, were needed even then. Today, we're still starting to see a few things launching, like permission domains and permission dexes and things like that, even on the XRP ledger. But when all of this stuff is in place, I think that original use case and the vision for this open financial system, the internet of value, I think that finally becomes a reality. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video.